In the previous episode, we have seen how to set up MongoDB on our local machine. So in this episode, we will see how to set up the whole backend and front end. So the backend is developed with Nodejs and ExpressJS, and the front end is developed with Angular. So let's dive into implementation. So this is how we are going to create folders in for this application. So we are going to create one folder for UI and another folder for API. So UI folder is created with Angular CLI and API is built with Node.js and Express.js. There are so many ways we can create folders, but it's always recommended to create separate folders for UI and API. So first I'm going to create one folder. Since we are developing mean stack, I'm going to name the folder as mean stack example. This is a project name. Now I'm going to import this into the VSCode. Once we have imported into VSCode, you can open a terminal in VSCode and create two folders. One is for UI, another is for API. Now the two folders are created. Now let's change directory into API. The first thing we need to do is since it's an API developed with Node.js, with npm init we can generate package.json. So package.json is the file where you have all the project information and all the dependencies and dev dependencies and all the npm scripts that you can run to run the whole project. So let's create a package.json with npm init. So when you do that, it asks you a bunch of questions. You can answer those questions like what is the package name. I'm giving that as an API, and version, semantic version. Since it's in development phase, I'm going to put 0.0.1. Description, test command, there is no Git repository yet. And keywords, you can put keywords since it's a mean backend. So I'm going to put those keywords. Other, my name, the license. So once you hit enter, it actually creates that package.json under API folder. Remember, you changed the directory from root to API, and you need to do this under API folder. So once we have created a package.json, I'm going to create index.js, which is the main file of the application. Let's do some commands. Let's run some Node.js code here. So I'm going to put first console log statement, and then I'm going to write some function. This function takes two parameters and it gives the output by multiplying those two parameters. So here is the console log statement where I'm calling that actual function multiply with two parameters with 10 and 30. So once if you can run with node index.js directly and it runs the application, it runs the actual code, or you can just put node index.js in the package.json as an npm script so that you don't have to remember all this every time you want to run. So you can just run npm start. With npm start, you can just run this index.js every time. So now we are done with the Node.js side of it. Now let's change the directory out of API and let's get into UI. So once you are in the UI folder, we need to install Angular CLI globally so that you can use Angular CLI to create the whole Angular application. So first, let's install Angular CLI globally. So this is done, and you can use ng from any path since that CLI is installed globally. And with now we are going to create a project. Since all the front-end application, all the front-end code resides in the UI folder, we are going to name this Angular application as UI. You can go through all the commands on the official documentation. With ng new help, you can have all the options. You can see all the options and what are all the descriptions of those options and all. And so with ng new, and you can give any name there, and it is going to create the whole Angular application with that particular name. Since UI is our name, I'm going to give ng new UI. So it creates the whole Angular application under UI. So it asks you some analytics questions. So let's put yes. You can put yes or no. And yes, we are going to develop a multiple page application, so we need routing. Let's put yes to it. And you can choose which tool you can use for CSS. And then it is creating the whole Angular application. Now it's done. So you can check the whole application. So this tool creates the whole Angular application for you, and it is recommended to use this tool because it doesn't matter which company you go, your Angular application will have the same structure. It has the routing module, it has the app modules, and it has Angular.json where it has all the project related configuration and project related information. We can go through all this Angular.json in the future episodes, but first let's look at the package.json. In package.json, you can have scripts, and if you notice, for the start command, we have ng-serve, which runs the Angular application in development phase. When you run npm start, so we need to change the directory here. Let's go into UI and hit the npm start. When you hit npm start, an ng-serve will run, and it runs the Angular application on port 4200. Copy this URL and hit it in the browser. Yep, now Angular application is set up and it's running on port 4200. So this is a welcome page, and if you go to routing module, and if you go to the module, app module, which is the first module, there is a app component in a bootstrap. So that is where that is the first component is being loaded on the browser. So whatever you see on the browser, the whole thing, the whole HTML is in this app component.html. Let's remove all this HTML and just put simple heading. I'm going to put simple heading where Angular application is running on port 4200. when you hit save, Angular watch the files and runs the application in the browser automatically. Now UI is done, so our Angular application is running on port 4200. Now let's go to API, so in which we just created only one file. We need to remove that simple file and we need to set up an Express server. So when we run npm start, it just runs the function there and some two print statements. So let's go ahead and look at Express page and copy those 3 lines and paste it here. As you notice, we are importing Express module. So we need to install Express module first. Let's go to package.json and with npm install Express, we are going to install Express here. So as you can see, the Express is getting added to dependencies. Now we need to define a default route. So this default route will take 2 things. One is a path and another is a callback function. The callback function will take 2 parameters, request and response. So we're not going to deal with anything related with request right now. So all we need to do is send some sample text in the response object. So this is a default route handler. Whenever you hit localhost 3000 on the browser, this is the route. This is the route which handles that request, and this is going to send that particular heading text. Now we need to create a server with app.listen, and it takes the port and also callback function. So in the callback function, we are just going to put one simple print statement which says API listening on port 3000. All we are doing here is we are importing Express, and we have defined a default route, and we are creating a Express server listening on port 3000. As you can see, API listening on port 3000. Let's add port to the console log. Yep. So now both UI and API is running on different ports. So when you hit that default URL, so we are getting that particular text message, and UI is running on port 4200 and API is running on port 3000. And also we are maintaining 2 separate terminals in which you can run both Frontend and Backend as separate applications and also on separate ports. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. We are going to see much more complicated topics in the future episodes.